Good day, everyone. My name is Jireh Lozana, and I have my partner with me, Frecyl Egham, and we will be reporting about the topic sexual regulation. So first off, let me introduce to you our objectives for this topic. First is to identify concepts that are under the sexual regulation. Second is to value the concepts under sexual regulation. And third is to combine the concepts learned and to respond to specific situations. Biological reproduction. Reproduction is the process of producing offspring that are biologically or genetically similar to the parent organism. So when we say reproduction, from the verb reproduce, it is the process wherein a certain offspring are to produce a similar organism based from the parent organism. So it means to reproduce. It is a biological process by which an organism reproduces an offspring who is biologically similar to the organism. Reproduction enables and ensures the continuity of species generation after generation. So it ensures the continuity of species because its kind will continue to produce the same organism. Now we have to understand that there are two types of reproduction. What are the two types? Number one is the asexual reproduction. This refers to the type of reproduction in which only a single organism gives rise to a new individual. So take note, asexual, single organism. It does not involve the fusion of gametes, and therefore, the offspring produced are genetically identical to the parent. So we have to remember that the offspring are very identical to the parent because the process is that it is only a single organism that gives rise to a new individual. Now that's the first type of reproduction. Second, before we proceed to the second type of reproduction, we have to also understand the types of asexual reproduction. We have binary fusion, in which the cell splits into two cells carrying a copy of the DNA from the parent cell. For example, amoeba. So we also have budding. This is a small bud-like outgrowth. It gives rise to a new individual. The outgrowth remains attached to the organism until it is fully grown. It detaches itself as leaves as in individual organism. So it gives rise to a new individual. Fragmentation, on the other hand, it is when the parent organism splits into several parts and each parts grow into a new individual. For example, planaria or the plants. We also have sporogenesis. In this type of reproduction, a new organism grows from the spores. This can be created without fertilization and can spread through wind and animals. So, sa spores po ni siya, maong sporogenesis. So, now, the second type of reproduction is sexual. Take note, number one is asexual. Number two is sexual reproduction. It is the type of reproduction that involves the production of an offspring by the fusion of male and female gametes. In sexual reproduction, male and female gametes are formed to produce an offspring. If asexual, it has a single parent organism. Sexual has two. It is the fusion between the male and the female gametes. Now, reproduction in plants. These are the examples and the types of sexual reproduction through pollination or vegetative propagation. In animals, the fusion of male and female gametes, a process called fertilization, and human reproduction through sexual intercourse, fusion of male sperm and female egg cells. So let's proceed to the socializing children. Now, these are some things to consider when the kid gradually grows into becoming a teenager and into an adult. Number one is the social milestones. All children go through definitive phases of social development. If a child doesn't go through the phases of social development, there may be a problem. But we have to consider that generally speaking, all children undergo through definitive phases, and the social milestones that a child can experience, the parents take a big part in contributing to that milestone of their child. Second, we also have the social programming. These are the times when a parent must reach out for help, and it is generally the mother who selects a child who would make an appropriate playmate. So, of course, we have to let our children develop interpersonal relationships with their peers. Through this, through socializing, they will also learn from their environment and grow as a person who is much strong and good in communication. Number 3, we have the next step. Eventually, if things continue to progress well, the young child should be allowed to try a short visit to the neighbor's house. I remember when I was still in my elementary grade, me and my friends would hang out on the house of our another friend, and then we would eat our lunch there before going to school in the afternoon session. So I think that was one of the times when I was able to communicate well, to build interpersonal relationships with my classmates, and thus helped me to be more friendly as I am today. So this also must be structured because we must also be very careful about the types of people that we go around with. Fourth is the group play. For some reason, some seems to hold a greater possibility for disaster than one-to-one play. Children tend to gang up and take sides. So in group play, this is the time when children will pick sides and then they will cause trouble against the other side. So this is our side and that's your side, and then they will sort of compete with each other and see who is a much better group. So that is part of growing up. Fifth is the appropriateness of language. Youngsters sometimes experiment and use language that is not appropriate. These are the words that has negative meaning, words that has implicit meaning, and words that is inappropriate generally. So this includes highly unacceptable profanity, the meaning of which they probably don't know. And that is why we must be very careful when we are around with kids, because the words that we say are often imitated by the children or the child that is listening. So we also have the appropriateness of action. Pushing, shoving, hitting, or outright inappropriate pranks need to be handled on the spot. Now, parenting, this involves the parent disciplining the child whenever the time calls. When the child does something that causes harm to others, or pranks that he intends to be funny but is already below the belt, the parents must handle it on the spot and discipline the child so that he or she will not bring it into his adulthood. We also have status placement. Status attainment is the process by which individuals attain positions in the system of social stratification in a society. Status placement, this is when people identify themselves in the social structure, when you are rich, when you are in the middle class, or when you are on the lower class of the society. So sociologists usually think of education, occupation, and income as the main aspects of socio-economic status, and the study of status attainment is therefore the study of how these attributes of people that are related both within and across generation. We have to remember that our identity doesn't lie on the things that we achieve as a person or even the way that we behave in the society. We have to remember that even if we don't have a lot of money, but the way that we behave in our society plays a major role in how we see ourselves and how other people see us. Welfare and protection. Family nowadays can be formed in various ways other than a heterosexual union. This includes single parenthood, live-in arrangements, and LGBTQ relationships, and also blended families. So they are included sa atong Welfare and Protection Act. Since family is considered as the foundation of nation, and it is the basic unit of the society, it is the state's responsibility to protect its welfare. So the government will try its best that the needs of each families are met in terms of their welfare and their protection. Married couples, the rights of the members of a conventional family, such as conjugal ownership of properties, are specified in the Family Code. Other laws and government institutions also provide benefits for family members. Republic Act 7322 grants female workers paid maternity leave for 60 days after childbirth, abortion, or miscarriage. PhilHealth members, legal spouse, and unmarried children below 21 years old can enjoy separate health coverage of up to 45 days in a year. The 45-day coverage is distributed to each availing dependent. So this is some of the benefits of married couples. Now, what if you are a solo parent? The benefits under Republic Act 8972 are generic: livelihood and counseling services, flexible working hours, and additional leave credits at work. We also have concerned agencies that are also required by law to give single parents opportunities for low-cost housing, medical assistance, and scholarships for their kids. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or the DSWD, campaigns for the amendment of the law to give single parents varying discount rates for products and services needed in raising their children. So if you are a solo parent, then you also get to have these benefits that the government offers so that you will be assisted accordingly. How about blended families? Blended families even in the Philippine setting, since most of the families here in the country tends to stay in one house even if their son or their daughter is already married. So blended families are formed when a parent remarries and the new spouse has his or her own children from another marriage or relationship. The issues that arise from this is the psychological adaptation of the children and at times cases of sexual abuse. So when you have a stepfather or stepmother, sometimes a lot of cases, not just in the Philippines but also all around the world, there are tendencies that the stepfather or the stepmother is taking sexual abuse to his or her stepson or stepdaughter. A review released by the UNICEF in October 2016 said that a blended family system and presence of step-parents are risk factors for sexual violence, as cited by several studies. So that's why the blended families must be very carefully evaluated and assisted. While the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children law seeks to protect them, the study against underreporting is still a major issue. Only 1% of child abuse victims report to authorities. This is due to coercion and fear that is being developed in the process of the sexual and physical or verbal abuse. Live-in partners. A study conducted by scholars from the University of Southampton said that the limited availability of family planning is also a driver for the rise of the live-in phenomena in the Philippines. So live-in partners are basically partners. Sometimes they have a child with them or children, but they are not married. Families in this setup are also entitled to social benefits, but despite them not being married, they are still entitled to claim their social benefits. And what are these benefits? They can avail themselves of the 60-day maternity leave if the woman is pregnant and she would need to take maternity leave. So this is her social benefit. It is also noted that common law couples would still encounter difficulties in having shared properties and other rights that legal spouses enjoy under the family code. So it also has its disadvantages. Now, LGBTQ relationships. Families headed by same-sex couples are subject to the toughest battle for legal recognition in the Philippine society. The House of Representatives recently passed on final reading the SOGI Equality Bill, which prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. And while this is a milestone in the LGBTQ fight, the measure does not include a provision on homosexual unions, and because the state does not recognize them, these couples cannot claim conjugal ownership of jointly purchased properties. So, dili pa kayo siya accepted diri sa Philippine society. So, the next the next part of the report will be delivered by Ms. Frecyl and Egham. So, that concludes my report for this day. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you learned something.
Hello everyone, this is Frecyl Egham, and I'm going to continue the topic about sexual regulation. So let's move on in the functions in relation to other institutions. Social institutions, in the use in this entry, need to be distinguished from less complex social forms such as conventions, rules, social norms, rules, and rituals. It also needs to be distinguished from more complex and more complete social entities, such as societies or culture, of which any given institution is typically a constitutive element. Thus, for an entity to be a society, it must sexually reproduce its membership. So, you need to have its own language and educational system, provide for itself economically, and at least in principle be politically independent. So let's move on the changing functions. One of the changing functions is the changes in the functions of sexual regulation, in which marriage are made in temples and in court at many times without parental permission. However, in modern times, it fails to exercise its traditional control in regulating sexual behavior of its members. Moreover, it results to premarital and extramarital relations are increasing. Number of prostitution centers, dance bar, etc. are also increasing. We also have changes in the reproductive functions of the family, in which in traditional societies reproductive functions was one of the most important essential functions of the family. However, at present, with the development of science and technology, particularly with the development of genetic engineering test tube, babies are born, which greatly affects the reproductive functions of family. Birth of more number of children are discouraged. We also have changes in the field of child in rearing functions, in which a great deal of changes are marked in the child rearing functions of the family. Why? Because these functions of the family have been shifted to certain external agencies such as hospital and maternity home. We also have changes in the protective functions of the family, in which in ancient times, family used to protect its members against all odds. But nowadays, this important function of family has been taken over by other specialized agencies such as hospitals, clinics, old age home, and more. We also have changes in the socialization function of family. Human child care became a human being living in the direct and personal care of family members. In modern times, family plays very less role in socializing its children, which is actually true. We also have changes in the educative functions of the family. We also have changes in the educative functions of the family, in which traditional family performs a number of educational functions for its members. But in present day, the role of family in education has declined a lot because of schools, college, universities, and technical institutions which take place. Okay, we also have the changes in the economic functions of the family, wherein the family was the main center of production, consumption, and distribution. It produces almost everything as per the need of its members, but at present, family remain only a consumption unit than a center of production. We also have changes in religious function of family. Why? Because in the traditional society, family was the center of worship and religious activities. However, in modern times, people are becoming secular in their attitude and practices. Festivals lost their traditional importance as well. We also have changes in the recreational functions of the family. With a change in society, recreations became commercialized. Instead of listening stories from our grandparents, now children prefer to watch television and prefer to go picnic and outings. Lastly, we have changes in the social functions of the family. Traditional family exercises a direct control over its members. As a result, they became good human beings. But in the modern times, these functions of family have sharply declined. It fails to exercise the same authoritative control over its members. Because of this, family became disorganized. It became no more a custodian of culture. Now let's move on to the functions of the Filipino family. In the Filipino family, it is dynamic. The eldest children are given much more responsibility, looking after their siblings when their parents are not around. For example, like when the mom or the mother goes to the market, so the older sibling or the eldest sibling is entitled to take responsibility of her younger sibling. Intolerable behaviors include fighting with parents and or older siblings, as well as speaking with an arrogant tone. Children who act out this high level of inappropriateness would be reprimanded. Furthermore, a child living in a Filipino household is required to ask permission before leaving the home. Once the child has returned, their parents and elder family members anticipate the kissing of hands or hand to forehead gesture with the words mano po, which symbolizes appropriate greeting. And these are our references. Thank you everyone and good day.